6:59. It ain't too early. A little bit, maybe.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. Who is able to make war with him?
Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to the Midnight Ride. And tonight, yes, he's back. Jon Pounders is back tonight, and we're going to have a Hootie Bob up in here. Tonight, the Donald Trump ENCIPHER. Who is Donald Trump? I've been asking myself that question, and maybe you have too. Well, tonight, we're going to be looking under every rock and down every crevice to give us the information that we need to answer that question for ourselves. And I guess the only thing left to say is let's ride, because we are now
live. What's up, guys? It's been a while since I've said that, just like 2 weeks, I guess, but it feels like a long time, and so I'm glad to be in here again to say it. And I just want to say thank you to Julian and Brian for covering for me those last 2 weeks. You guys did a great job. I enjoyed the shows and actually learned something from them. It was nice to be able to sit on the other end for once. So I'm grateful for that. Thankful for you all, you guys that are taking your time to be here with us right now. You could literally be doing anything you wanted to be doing, but you're here with us, and for that we're grateful. And David, how has your week been?
It's been fantastic. We've just had some amazing response to the ministry this week. It's just been a great week. God's blessing, and we're glad you're back. We're blessed that you're back here on the ride.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way. I would be sad if you're like, well, Jon, you've been gone, and now we realize that we don't really want you around here anymore. So I'm glad to hear that. Hopefully you guys are glad to have me back as well. But, man, I can say that the feasts were awesome. We've ended the feast cycle for this fall, and it was just really nice to be able to celebrate with friends and family, and to be able to just kind of have this time to work on special projects, and also to be able to take that time for those feasts. It was awesome and amazing, and hopefully a lot of you guys out there got to do the same thing. And I can say this about tonight's show. Tonight's show is one where I'm just going to be presenting information that I've researched, that I've studied over the years. Some of the stuff that we're talking about tonight is stuff that we've talked about in the past and actually done shows on in the past, but there's also new information and new things that we're going to be talking about tonight. And I'm not here to sway your opinion one way or another. I'm just here to present some information. And like David said, who is Trump? Who is this guy? Because this is an enigma to me. So anyways, David, do you have anything to announce? You guys got any shows coming up this weekend?
Oh, boy, do we. Sunday Night Live, 7 p.m. on FOJC Radio. Underground Church, the Mud Floods are coming. A Mud Flood teaching on Sunday night with Brian Reese and myself. It's going to be very sticky, guarantee you.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to it. And for you, those of you that would like to support what we're doing, make sure you check out the links below. Also, check out our NYSTV.org. You can go over there and see our Book of Enoch video commentary, which I'll be adding to week after week. David's been bringing us through the entire Book of Enoch, and we're getting towards the end of it, so make sure you check that out. Also, other documentaries, etc. And this is a way you can support us. We've been demonetized on every platform known to man, so it's only through you guys that we're able to keep going. So thank you guys so much. And with that being said, David, if you got anything else, go for it. If not, I'll get us.
I can't wait to dive into this. So let's cook the taters.
Let's cook the taters. So, as we said before, we're going to be asking the question: who is Trump? I can say this about this guy. Back in 2016, when he ran for office, I had a feeling he would win. I really did. I had this feeling that he would win. There's something different about him from the gate. He was always something different. The last election he lost, and then this election he won. For those of you who didn't know or living under the rock, he won this election according to the Associated Press. We've seen a lot over the years, and we've done shows over the years, so we're able to kind of track back and see the things we've talked about, and also be able to add to with new information to see kind of where we're at. And I'm a person that believes that it's not possible to know everything, okay? I think that I know a lot of information, and I am able to look at some of the esoteric things and see into what that's talking about because of the things I've studied. I'm able to see signs and see things that are patterns in a lot of these things. And so that's what I'm going to bring forth, not to give you, sway your opinion whether Trump is good, whether he's bad, or anything. I'm just going to be giving information tonight. So bear with me. Some of the stuff that I'm going to be pulling from is this book called The Trump Code by Troy Anderson, which was written more recently. It's not an older book, but a lot of the stuff he pulls from is the stuff that we talked about in this Trump time travel Tesla episode that we did a couple years ago. And then this Barron Trump collection, which has several books in it that are written in the 1800s, very interesting books. And then this, Could Donald Trump Really Be the Antichrist? Now, I want to reiterate, I don't necessarily believe that Donald Trump is the Antichrist. I don't believe that. But at the same time, there are things that would make him a great candidate for it that we talked about before. But as I said, things have started to change, it seems like. There have been a new group of things that have taken place, so we have to talk about those things. One of the things that's happened recently is an assassination attempt. Now, whether you believe this was a real assassination attempt, a fake assassination attempt, whatever, I think that it was a real one. I've watched the video. I don't know how many times I've watched it over and over again. I've watched it in slow-mo. For them to be able to do this live like this would be almost impossible, in my opinion, and I think that it was a real shot. I think that the chances of that bullet missing him were just amazing, that he was able to turn his head in time and he missed it. So he had an assassination attempt. There's nothing that can be said other than that to me. I believe what I saw with my own eyes. And after this assassination attempt, we see kind of a change in Trump, more of the things that we maybe would want as a Christian to hear out of the man that supposedly is going to be leading our country in the next few years. I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this from this book. Now, I'm just giving all the information that I have out there. I'm not for or against, because honestly, I don't know. I know that there's easy to deceive from a distance. It's very simple. I don't know the man personally. I don't know any of these people personally that we're talking about, but I would like to give this information. I really do think that it's pertinent to be able to understand and just have the concept in our head. So I'm going to read this. This is about a prophet named Kim Clement, and this is out of this book. A lot of you guys may have seen The Prophecy by Kim Clement. And it says, for example, this is page 4, for example, the late South African prophet Kim Clement, as far back as 2007, pronounced God had handpicked Trump to be his trumpet in government. It says, Trump shall become a trumpeter, says the Lord, Kim Clement prophesied in 2007. There will be a praying president, not a religious one, for I will fool the people, said the Lord God. The one that I shall choose shall go in, and they shall say he has hot blood, for the Spirit of God says, yes, he may have hot blood, but he will bring the walls of protection on this country in a greater way, and the economy of this country shall change rapidly, says the Lord of hosts. Listen to the word of the Lord, God says. I will put at your helm for 2 terms a president that will pray, but he will not be a praying president when he starts. I will put him in office, and then I will baptize him with the Holy Spirit and my power, says the Lord of hosts. Now, prior to Trump getting reelected and prior to him becoming a praying president, I'll explain that here in a minute, I had no reason to believe any of this prophecy was going to be legitimate, and this is just being real about it. But looking back and actually listening to it, I had to give it a second look, okay? So I don't know about all the other prophecies that Kim Clement's done. I have no idea, but I had to give this one a second look. Also, you see articles like this, Donald Trump's victory speech, God spared his life for a reason, and he's addressed Jesus. He's had praise and worship at many of his many of his seminars, and he's also been the only president to have a national day of prayer at the White House, praying inside the White House. Most of the candidates before wouldn't even pray at their actual events, so it's pretty interesting. This right here is a video of Donald Trump instituting this Bible, and I'd like for you guys just to check this out for a second, and hang in there with me, guys. You guys are really gonna not want to miss what else I've got to show for you guys. Of course, there's an ad on there. Oh yeah. That's what happens when you play YouTube videos. They give you an ad within the YouTube video ad. So here we go.
Proud to be partnering with my very good God bless the USA Bible.
All right, I'm starting that
This
over.
Bible is the King James.
Here we go.
I'm proud to be partnering with my very good friend Lee Greenwood. Who doesn't love his song, God Bless the USA, in connection with promoting the God Bless the USA Bible. This Bible is the King James Version and also includes our Founding Father documents, yes, the Constitution, which I'm fighting for every single day, very hard, to keep Americans protected. Also, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance are all part of this God Bless the USA Bible, and it's just very important and very important to me. I want to have a lot of people have it. You have to have it for your heart, for your soul. Many of you have never read them and don't know the liberties and rights you have as Americans and how you are being threatened to lose those rights. It's happening all the time. It's a very sad thing that's going on in our country, but we're going to get it turned around. Religion and Christianity are the biggest things missing from this country. And I truly believe that we need to bring them back, and we have to bring them back fast. I think it's one of the biggest problems we have. That's why our country is going haywire. We've lost religion in our country. All Americans need a Bible in their home, and I have many. It's my favorite book. It's a lot of people's favorite book. This Bible is a reminder that the biggest thing we have to bring back America and to make America great again is our religion. Religion is so important. It's so missing, but it's going to come back, and it's going to come back strong, just like our country is going to come back strong. In the end, we do not answer to bureaucrats in Washington. We answer to God in heaven. Christians are under siege. We must protect content that is pro-God. We love God, and we have to protect anything that is pro-God. We must defend God in the public square and not allow the media or the left-wing groups to silence, censor, or discriminate against us. We have to bring Christianity back into our lives and back into what will be again a great nation. Our founding fathers did a tremendous thing when they built America on Judeo-Christian values. Now that foundation is under attack, perhaps as never before. What can we do? Stand up, speak out, and pray that God will bless America again. I'm proud to endorse and encourage you to get this Bible. We must make America pray again. Pray, get educated, get motivated, and stand with me and the legions of Americans asking God to bless our great nation, to bring our great nation back, and to make America great again. I'm proud to partner with Lee in this offering. He's a very special man, both as a talent, but maybe even more so as a human being. He's very, very special. And I think you all should get a copy of God Bless the USA Bible now and help spread our Christian values with others. There you have it. Let's make America pray again. God bless you, and God bless the USA.
Interesting, to say the least. I've never seen that out of a president before. So there's always the part of me that's 100% skeptical, and I can say that I don't believe anything that I see on TV. I've said that a million times. But there's also the part of me that says, is it my place to judge yet before I've been able to see what's going to happen in the time to come? And so I'm really right there in that place. I'm not the one to judge people. I'm going to wait and see in this whole thing. There's definitely more that we have to present that shows the enigma that is Trump, because there are other things that are on the other side of the fence that make me wonder. And of course, some of these are past things. and situational things and just real almost paranormal type things that we're going to be talking about. But David, having seen all of this, and I know you've been watching and paying attention just as much as I have, what do you think? I guess, I mean, and obviously our job is not to judge the man. We know that, but what do you think?
Well, I think that Donald Trump made that video just because of me to try to win me over. That's what I think. But, and it's above my pay grade, as you say. I can't judge the man's heart. And certainly I think that all Christians would pray and want to believe that he did have a real change of heart in that assassination attempt. And there are some indications like that are showing us that very well might be. And it could be that that happened and he's just not aware of some of the other things going on that he might figure out. So right now, I know the Bible says that we are to pray for our leaders, and I do that. And I'm going to continue to pray for President Trump, and we'll just have to see what happens,
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one, man. I haven't, and I'll just kind of give you a background on me, David. You already know this, and most of you listening know this, but prior to this election, I hadn't voted since the year 2000, and I hadn't even felt the need to nor desire, because I haven't seen one candidate that I really truly had any kind of, I would say, any like. I didn't like any of them. I mean, Trump is one that had, for some reason, there's something about this guy that it's different. Maybe it's a deception, maybe it's a real thing, but there's something different about him, and nobody can say that this isn't the case. And we're going to really kind of dig into this. What I'm getting ready to play for you guys is an episode that we did, I believe it was 2022. I'm going to play this episode. It might have been 2021. I think the date is actually on the episode. But this is something that we talked about back then, and it has to do with the marvelous underground adventure with Baron Trump and his dog Bulger. And I think that it's really going to blow your guys' mind if you haven't seen it. And if you have, bear with us because there's more to add to this. This is going to be awesome. David, do you have anything you want to say before we played this video?
Well, I'll just have to say, for me personally, as probably most people know, I'm still in the I ain't going to vote for nobody camp. I still have the perspective of the left-right paradigm being two heads of the same beast. Having said that, God is a big God, and it's not impossible for him to lay his hand on someone and raise them up. And certainly I think we would all have to hope that that be the case. Having said that, the verdict's still out in my mind. I have a lot of concerns, as a lot of you do also. But, we'll just have to be in prayer and see. I think certainly if God would really lay his hand upon Donald Trump to stand up, to really do some important things, it'd be great. And we're seeing some good things. So we'll just have to watch and pray and see what happens.
Yeah, we'll have to see, man. And like I said, I've never been a voting person, and in fact, my vote in Indiana never matters. It's always red. It's never been an issue, so I haven't even thought about it. But this election, I felt like we're clearly seeing, at least portrayed, good versus evil. And what people say, well, Trump's evil as well, and maybe so. He might be evil, and I think that there's a lot of his past that I'm sure he would agree, and any of us would agree has been evil. And I can say the same about my past. And only judging by the newer things that have come to pass can I say that maybe, just maybe, let's hope for a chance. And like David said, all we can do is hope for it. It doesn't mean we believe it. Doesn't mean we're going to worship the guy, but we can just hope for it, right? I would hope that people can at least pray that God can be on our side and allow something good to take place. I hope that's the case, but I have to play this other stuff for you too. And so this might change everybody's mind. I don't know. Like I said, I'm here to play information. I'm not here to sway your mind on this. I think you guys just need to see some of this stuff. So this is a few minutes long, so check this out. This is really interesting. Baron Trump grows up in this Trump Tower, this Trump Castle. He's getting tired of living the luxurious life. He has a little dog, and they decide to go on a journey to the center of the earth. And there's this guy that leads them. His name is Don, okay? And as they lead them, they go through different portals. They go through meeting different kinds of beings in the earth and time travel and all of these different things. And we're just going to go through some of these things. And hopefully I'll bring some things out, too, that I don't think anybody else has brought out as well. I'm going to start here at the top. It says, "It so happened at the time of Bogel's low spirits," which is his dog, that the elder baron had, through the kindness of an old school friend, come into possession of a 15th century manuscript from the pen of no less celebrated thinker and philosopher than the learned Spaniard Don Constantino Bartholomew Stephrolofage. I believe that's how you pronounce it, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last word. Maybe I will. Guarnerius Fum, commonly known among scholars as Don Fum, entitled A World Within a World. In this work, Don Fum advances the wonderful theory that there is every reason to believe that the interior of our world is inhabited. So this guy, Don Fum, so I looked up Don Fum. I tried to figure it out because it says that commonly known among scholars as Don Fum. And I know that the way that the mystery religions work is they hide their mysteries in etymology, they hide it in symbols, and they hide it in names. And so I looked into the etymology of these words. So the first word is Don, and Don actually means Lord, Master, Owner, okay? And so that's the first word, Don. The next word here is Fum, and this actually means to play upon a fiddle. So what we have here is the Lord of the Fiddle, right? We have the Lord of the Fiddle, and I know that a lot of people can think of a popular song. The devil went down to Georgia. He had the fiddle. He was the fiddle player, right? He had the fiddle of gold. And this actually goes back even further to the Baroque period in the 1600s. And they have this Devil's Trill Sonata. You can read this. I'll leave this up here for a second, screenshot it, whatever. But this is an old concept of the devil being this fiddle player. And I think it goes back to some of the scriptures in the Bible that talks about, he was embedded with the strings and the pipes and talking about the archangel and all of these different things. So this is our Don Fum. He is the Lord of the violin or the fiddle and or master of the violin and the fiddle. So if that adds anything to this whole thing. So also we got in the book here, it talks about him being in a place called Castle Trump. And it says here, "Yes, I understand thee now, faithful companion, and I promise thee that before this moon hath filled her horns, we shall once more turn our backs on Castle Trump, up and away in the search of portals to Don Fum's world within a world." And so another thing that I found interesting in here, and this is, the family was originally French Huguenot, it says, okay? And in the end, by the end of the book, they actually come together in Germany and celebrate. In New Rochelle is actually on Huguenot Street, which I thought was pretty interesting. But what happens after this, they go to this place, they call it the Giant's Well. And this place is in the northern Urals, and this is also Quarry of the Demons, as it's called. And it says, this is from the book here, it says, "I had often read of what travelers termed the quarries of the demons in the northern Urals, but never till now had I the faintest notion of what the expression meant." And so here we have a map of the Ural Mountains. You can kind of see where this is right here. What I found interesting about the Ural Mountains when I was researching it is commonly referred to by Heracles that the Hyperboreans were connected to the Scythians, and how the Riphean Mountains were in fact the Ural Mountains. So there's this connection that leads the Ural Mountains to Hyperborea. And we've done quite a few shows on Hyperborea. That we did some Book of Enoch that were really interesting as well, that talked about Enoch's trip to this place. I promise you, it only gets better from here. This stuff is just mind-blowing to me. So right here in this part of the book, we have him going to this funnel. It's called the Polyphemus funnel, and it's where he reached the bottom of the Giant's Well. Now in this Giant's Well, Polyphemus, if for those of you that don't know what that is, Polyphemus is actually a cyclops mentioned in Homer's Odyssey. Cyclops is another use for a cyclone in this, okay? So a cyclops, cyclone.
"Do you not think an angel rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm? this work continues. The story goes on, and an angel still rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm.
In the book of Job, chapter 38 and verse 1, then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind. In the book of Enoch, chapter 39, verse 3, and in those days a whirlwind carried me off from the earth and set me down at the end of the heavens. Enoch was taken up in a whirlwind, and when the gate opens, there's a wind come through, and when the gate opened for the Father to speak to Job, there was a whirlwind there. And we know with Elijah, and it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. And in Ezekiel 1 and 4, when what we had there was what scholars would call a theophany, a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ in Ezekiel 1 and 4. And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and fire enfolding itself, and a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof, as the color of amber, out of the midst of the fire. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the vision that followed.
All right, so that's the video that we did before, and it talks about, this is a really interesting book for those of you that haven't read it. I bought the whole, it's called the Omnibus, so I guess it's all of the collection together, and I read it, and it's children's books written by a lawyer who actually was a pretty prominent lawyer at one time, and was even given a position by Abraham Lincoln, and he wrote these books. And I just think it's interesting. I'm not saying that they are prophetic in any way, but this book sets up some very interesting things that happen within this book. And, you know, as we go on through some of these things, it's pretty mind-blowing. David, you just did a report on this book, a book report. Was it on this book, or was it on the 1900 book?
Well, I did two.
Okay.
The first one was on Baron von Trump's marvelous underground journey with these Dog Bulger, and I talked about the first two of Mr. Lockwood's books. And in the second video, which is called The Last President, and they're both book reviews. They're just about 9 minutes long. They're on the FOJC Radio Underground Church channel. And what's amazing is there are so many similarities. These books written in the late 1800s, and we have Baron von Trump, which of course is Mr. Trump's son's name, and Mr. Trump actually went by Baron Trump in the 80s. He used that name a lot. It's well known. In the Lockwood books, he lives in Trump Castle. We have Trump Towers. And in the Lockwood books, Mr. Baron von Trump was always bragging about his big brain and insulting people that didn't agree with him. And there are so many similarities that it's hard to just dismiss it all as coincidence. And my take on it, for what it's worth, is I believe that there's nothing godly about it, that there's a dark spiritual signature around it. And I think that quite likely the spirits are trying to recreate this same timeline within our time. And in the book, The Last President, there was a president that was elected that set off riots. And these riots were so bad that it resulted in the downfall of the nation. And after the nation fell, a cult was set up. And this is book 4, or book 5. It's the Lionics of a Cult. And it talks about the cult that was set up in America after the nation was destroyed, after the last president was elected. So it's really got a dark thing to it. I don't think there's anything of God. So that's my take on it, for what it's worth, in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I remember reading the book, and I'll say that it was very esoterically written. A lot of, like I even pointed out, just the name of the Don Fum, and you go on through a lot of these things. There was a lot. There was a lot encoded into it. A lot of stuff encoded into these books that was pretty interesting, to say the least. Now, I'm going to go on with another part of this video. This is coming from our time travel one, to compare some more interesting things, because I think that the reason I'm playing this video, actually these videos, is because when we covered this, I don't think that we could have covered it better. So I want to make sure that we get this, and so that we can talk more about it after that. So this video is a few minutes longer, but I think you guys are really going to enjoy it, and really going to see some things in here that blow your mind if you haven't seen it already. A video clip from Enter the Stars on YouTube, and he's done a series of different videos on this subject.
My despair upon finding the pipe of the funnel too small for my body. Now here's where things get interesting, because Baron can't fit through the portal. But watch what he does next. A ray of hope breaks in upon me, full account of how I succeeded in entering the pipe of the funnel, my passage through it, Bulger's timely aid, the marble highway, and some curious things concerning the entrance to the world within a world. The rocky sides of the Polyphemus funnel were apparently as well polished as those of any tin funnel that I had ever seen hanging in the kitchen of Castle Trump. So making fast my tackle and taking Bulger in my arms, away we were sliding down the side with the line passed under my arm for safety's sake. It was nearly 100 feet to the bottom, for I had measured off the full length of my line before I had come to the apex of this gigantic cone. So, down through the portal. And this is where we begin to see clues of things that might relate directly to what is happening right now. Now understand that the electric universe was in its infancy in the year 1890 in the real world. And so we have Baron entering this coil pipe. I guess it's a tin pipe, maybe. And of course, coiling is one of the main components of the electric generator. But he gets stuck and he can't go any further. Now that could be a reference to a magnetic polarity, that magnetically he could not pass through. So what does he do? He wraps himself up and he smears black lead all over his body so he can, quote unquote, fit through the funnel. Now as we read this, understand that lead is diamagnetic. In other words, it repels magnets, powerful magnets, which is exactly what you would need to slip through a magnetic portal, right? A coiled wire. Think of the copper being coiled the way it was. Let's read this. It was tight as I could bear and change the slip knot into a hard one. Then, having made the other end of the line fast to the side of the funnel, I proceeded to wind myself up, as housewives often do, a big sausage, to keep it from bursting. This done, I set about rolling in the black lead until I was thoroughly smeared of it. There was now but one thing more to do before dropping myself into the pipe, and that was to make fast the weight to my feet. It was no easy task, wound up as I was, with my arms lashed down against my body, but by the use of the slip knots, I finally accomplished the feat, and sitting down, put my legs into the pipe and drew a long breath, for I felt as if I was skewered up in a straitjacket. Bending down, I called out for Bulger. So he sent Bulger down first. Bulger went through okay because he was a small dog. And then here he comes with this technique that he uses to slide down through this pipe. So he's successful by wiping this lead all over him. So, what is this about? Well, lead is diamagnetic. And basically it repels magnets. Here's actually a video on, I think I have a video here on it. Here it is here. Let's play just a part of this.
Hi there. That's the brass and the lead.
This guy takes this
Copper.
geode, no, I'm sorry, not geode, a neodymium magnet, which is a very powerful magnet.
So that's the aluminium, then the brass, then the lead, and then the copper, and the G-clamp. You'll see it goes slowly over the aluminium, then quicker over the brass, a lot quicker over the lead, and then it slows down again over the copper. And that's because of the different electrical resistivities, the electrical resistance. The copper has got the lowest resistance, then the aluminium, then the brass, and then the lead. And the lower the electrical resistance, the higher the current. The stronger the magnetic field that's produced.
So, was Baron smearing this lead all over his body? Was this magnetic in principle? You have to ask yourself. I believe it was. I believe that they were describing a magnetic type of electrical interface that allowed him to get through this portal. And this is the whole basis of this whole Trump the Time Traveler aspect. Biff Tannen, Back to the Future. There's some kind of technology where they're opening portals.
But in the Bible, there's also a use of lead going through portals. In Zechariah chapter 5 and verse 6, there's the vision of the woman in the basket. And it says in Zechariah 5 and 6, and I said, what is it? And he said, this is an ephah that goeth forth. He said, moreover, this is their resemblance through all the earth. And behold, there was lifted up a talent of lead.
Whoa.
And this is the woman that sitteth in the midst of the ephah. And the last verse, this woman is using the lead. Well, she's coming from a bad place through a portal. Where's she going? Verse 11, and he said unto me to build it an house in the land of Shinar, and it shall be established and set there upon her own base.
But think about the way that they've outlawed lead and paint anymore, you know, keeping magnetism from entering into your home and all of these different things. I mean, there's something there.
Yeah, they don't even want lead and pencils anymore.
But it gets weirder, so we're going to keep going a little bit weirder here, a little bit deeper weirder, unless you got something else to add to that.
No,
Okay, so as he goes through the portal, the first thing he finds, he's in this black tunnel, and all of a sudden he sees these tongues of fire. Okay, and
sees the what?
He sees tongues of fire that are lighting tongues of fire that are lighting up a cave, and these are the things that are emitting these tongues of fire, this reptilian race. And he says there's like 10,000 of them as he starts seeing their eyes glow, etc. That he goes down into this portal, and at the bottom of the portal. And it even gets weirder from here. So next it talks about these mica men, and I'm going to read this passage here, a couple of these here, just because I want to set the stage for what we're talking about here. It says, yes, sir stranger, he said in a low musical voice, thou art indeed of the land of the mica minkies, the mica men, in the land of the transparent folk, called also Goggle land. But if I should show thee my heart, thou wouldst see that I am deeply pained to think that I should have been the first to bid thee welcome. For know, sir stranger, that thou speakest with Master Cold Soul, the court depressor, the saddest man in all of Goggle land. And by the way, sir, permit me to offer thee a pair of goggles for thyself, and also a pair for thy four-footed companion. And now, dear friends, I must okay, so first off, they're in this place called Goggle Land. You talked about Gog Magog. It also reminds me of Google a little bit. And for some reason, they got to put these goggles on when they enter into this place. And I did a little bit of digging on these mica men, and mica is actually and I'll explain that here in a second, but I want to read this here first. And it says, and now, dear friends, I must explain that by the laws of the Micaminkies, each man, woman, and child must wear in their garment a heart-shaped opening on their breast directly over their hearts with a corresponding one at the back. So under certain conditions, when the law allows it, each may have the right to look at his neighbor's hearts and see exactly. And it goes on to say, see what their heart is, see like how their heart is, what they're talking, what they're doing and all that, and etc. So I went in and did a little bit more research on mica, and mica stones are actually in heart chakra. Mica stones have to do with the heart and the circulatory system of the heart. And so you have these shimmering, transparent people with a hole in their garment cut around their heart. It also describes in this book as this being this kind of electric place down underneath the ground to where electricity is down there, and that's kind of how they reside in this electricity. And there's this Queen Galaxa that's in charge of all of this area, and it's this beautiful place underground. And what I thought of, David, when I heard about this kind of electric thing with these transparent beings, I thought of the verse in Luke 10:18 where it says, and he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning falling from heaven.
Well, in the book of Enoch, chapter 44, it states that the judgment upon some of the fallen powers was that they were to remain in the form of lightning. This is the actual form of some of the fallen powers, according to the book of Enoch. And in this scenario, this is laced with symbolism that people on the wrong side of things, and even the good side of things, if you're learned, can understand. And the tongues of fire, of course, Enoch, the book of Enoch also, he saw the tongues of fire in the third heaven. And we know the tongues of fire on the day of Pentecost. And here we have a counterfeit tongues. Everything in the dark kingdom is an imitation of that, and it connects disturbingly well with the scenario in Zechariah 6, building a house for this woman.
Yes.
It shows the establishment of a false religion, and also the heart. It's very reminiscent of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, the Eucharistic Heart of Jesus. We probably all seen these pictures of Jesus with the big heart there on the outside, and not the real Jesus, but the Eucharistic Jesus. So just tons of symbolism. This guy is absolutely an adept that knows how to use symbols to communicate, and that's what these guys like to do. They want to communicate in symbols, so the average person that would read it would just think, well, this is crazy. But someone that is adept, they understand just what they're talking about.
You also talked about in Acts 2, which you just mentioned, the tongues of fire, but there was a sound of wind.
Yeah.
So the whirlwind is connected with
Yeah.
the tongues of fire there as well.
Yeah.
Except the whirlwind that we're talking about actually ascends up. This one ascends down into the depths of the earth, which is,
Yeah.
as above, so below type thing.
Yeah, and I believe totally in the biblical cosmology. I believe we have three heavens, and I believe there is an underworld that is so much going on there. We've talked a lot about that in the recent Midnight Rides. And there are portals that connect our earth and our first heaven with the second, third heavens underworld. And this is how we understand all of the spiritual world. Understanding that we have three heavens and earth and underworld connected by portals, I think this is exactly the way we understand what's going on in the good realm and the dark in the spiritual side of things.
This kind of gets into what we're getting ready to talk about, this portal, and we're going to bring up the man Tesla because he does tie into this in a very real way in all of this. So this is a quote. He says, and this is the knowledge, we're going to discuss the knowledge he was talking about. He says, lock up this cosmic knowledge in a safe for 1,000 years until man is ready for it. And, if you read a lot of more of his writings, he claims that basically everything that he received invention-wise actually came from this luminiferous ether, or this prana that he talks about. And I have a video here I want to play too that kind of just shows the connection to Tesla and the Trump family in a real way, and then we'll kind of discuss from here because this is really interesting. So here we go, guys.
When Nikola Tesla died suddenly in 1943 in a hotel room in New York, there was a lot of intrigue, since he was so brilliant and worked on so many important things like motors and x-rays. A lot of people were worried that his unreleased work would fall into the wrong hands. So the FBI got involved, and they just released 65 pages worth of documents surrounding that intrigue in response to a FOIA request from Muckrock. Apparently, Tesla's good friend Blois Fitzgerald told the FBI that Tesla told him that he had actually finished a revolutionary type of torpedo, which he hadn't told anyone about yet. And Fitzgerald said that Tesla also told him he completed a working model of a death ray and had hidden it in a lockbox in New York. Adding to the intrigue, Tesla had a relative he didn't like very much, named Sava Kasanovic. Kasanovic was from Yugoslavia and had connections to the Axis powers, according to a New York Times source in the documents. And apparently Kasanovic was at the hotel on the night of Tesla's death and searched the lockbox. He ended up taking a few pictures only, apparently, nothing major, but still, the intrigue swirled. So just to make sure they didn't miss out on Tesla's death ray, the FBI decided to have an expert thoroughly look over all the stuff Tesla had left behind. That expert was an MIT engineer who had worked for the government on stuff like radar research, so they trusted him. And that MIT engineer was none other than Donald Trump's uncle, John G. Trump. So Donald Trump's actual uncle was the person to inspect Tesla's supposed death ray machine. For real, you can't make that up. Now, to me, that's pretty funny. I mean, maybe that's why Trump's so confident when it comes to bragging about our military and bossing other countries around. Maybe his brilliant scientist uncle saw some secret plans of Tesla's that the president nephew now knows about.
From New York, I boarded a plane to Boston to find Dr. Jon Trump of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Dr. Trump was now retired from the company he founded, High Voltage Engineering, but he agreed to meet me at the company office the next morning.
In the spring of 1943, Dr. Carl T. Compton, who was then president of MIT, asked me to go to New York and examine the effects of Nikola Tesla. These were contained in an upper floor of a warehouse somewhere in New York City. And I spent a good deal of time examining one by one the papers, the books, and various other memorials that he had accumulated. But I was particularly looking for something which would be evidence of a secret weapon, which I was reminded by the agents, the two agents who were present during the entire time, was a matter of concern to the United States. In the course of this, I did come across a number of letters directed at the upper echelon of the British Empire, that is, I think, to the King and Queen, or perhaps just to the King of England, and also to the Tsar of Russia, explaining that he was the inventor of a secret weapon which had rather remarkable properties, and that he would be interested in entering into a negotiation which would lead to a disclosure of what they were. Of course, I spent a good deal of time looking through these papers, trying to find out what the nature of this secret weapon was. I think I had, although I don't remember it so very accurately, an idea of what its properties were. It had the capability of acting at a great distance, of being destructive to flying objects and things of that kind at a place which was remote from the source. But nowhere in his technical papers did I find anything which revealed an explanation of just how such a device could operate.
I believe that you also opened another box, supposedly a secret weapon that he left at another hotel. Can you relate that story, please?
Yes, when I had substantially concluded my study on the following day, I think that was a Saturday morning, I was reminded by one of the two agents that there was a box being held as a security for an unpaid obligation, and that this box was an item of considerable value and may indeed itself be the secret weapon, that it was armed and therefore it probably was not touched.
Were you nervous doing this?
I found it a matter of a bit of concern. However, I realized that this had to be done, and so we taxied down to this hotel. The agents identified themselves and their credentials to the assistant manager of the hotel, who led us to a room. This room was essentially empty except for a table and a steel cabinet against the wall, which was opened. I think perhaps he opened it with a key. The cabinet
I didn't add that music, that's for sure.
Was empty, except on one of the lower shelves was a package, a box, a rectangular box of ordinary size, which was wrapped in brown wrapping paper. It turned out to be a highly polished box with brass clasps and it looked more like an instrument case. And after waiting a while and listening a while and remembering that it had been there for quite a few years, I think it had actually been there for about 5 years as a security, I opened it. My report to Dr. Compton was that I saw no danger in releasing these papers and these relics to his heirs.
So there's that video, and there's another video I have that's got a little bit more on this time travel thing, but there's clearly something at play here that just makes you look at it and say, okay, there's prophetic elements, but you also have prophetic elements from the other side as well. You've got some that seem to be from the godly side, but you also have some that seem to be from here. And now I know Trump can't control these prophecies and these things that happen, but I think there are people that see things and maybe hear things from demonic entities, or they have access to things. But I'll tell you, the more we get into this, the more questions that I have about what we're capable of and about what is possible in the spiritual realm, because this stuff is mind-blowing to me. David, do you have anything you want to, before we go in more into this time travel connections with Trump, what more would you have to say?
Well, in this book, The Marvelous Underground Adventures of Baron von Trump, there are definitely concepts in there that relate to Tesla physics, the electric universe and the portals. And is it a coinkydink? Well, who comes up to examine Tesla's papers? Trump's uncle. And now who is besties with Trump? Oh, Elon, Mr. Tesla himself. So, can we write this all off as coincidence? It's really hard to do. And to me, it really seems like there are spirits that are trying to bring about the fulfillment of that dark scenario. Now, one thing we have to keep in mind is that God is in control. There's a plan in place from secret societies and from these covens and these elite bloodlines, but it's God that will say when and where they'll be able to implement it. So we have to keep that in mind too, that even though there could be a dark force trying to bring this about, we don't know how it's going to play out. We just have to be very, very careful the way we analyze this. But it certainly does seem to be something definitely from the dark side, not the good.
I agree with you. I mean, we don't even know how our own life is going to turn out, and so to be able to see this stuff for what it is really hard. I've noticed many times in my own life, and I'm sure everybody can have these scenarios where you see these weird coincidences that seem to take place around your own life, maybe dates that certain things happen, times that certain things happen. These things just kind of compound in your life, and you start to see these association. And a part of that is because we're created, and there is a plan, right? There is a plan in this world, and so it's interesting to see this stuff kind of lay out. And did you have something you wanted to say, David?
Well, no. Well, I would just say too, something else. I believe people can take it for whatever they think it's worth, but I believe that in America, and basically it's a global thing, that, or I guess I could say a international thing, that there's a initiated elite among the physicists and the scientists and the medical institutions that operate under the principle of Tesla physics rather than Einstein physics. I believe that Einstein physics are taught to people in schools because it's physics for stupid people. I believe that the concepts of physics that get done, these super things like Tesla did with the death ray, that I believe that many of these definitely are in existence, that this comes about through Tesla concepts.
It's amazing to me too, like this connection with the Trump family and Tesla, and then you have Elon Musk basically, right there with Trump and this whole thing. We'll talk more about that, but man, it's the coincidences just keep stacking, and they're going to keep stacking for the show. Hope you guys don't mind us going a little bit over or longer than normal, but man, I think that we just gotta play this for them. What do you think, David?
Right now's the time to pay attention real close.
All right, here we go,
really
guys.
Is.
Today we have with us an engineer who typifies that American capability of converting great ideas into operating mechanisms that can then be turned over, as it were, to the man in the street for safe and proper use and applications. Only Professor Jon Trump, who is with us today, did not stop there. Now, when you went to MIT, I believe your original intentions, if they may be so described, was to go into electric power types of applications. Is that right?
That's right. I had become interested in the design of electric power machinery. And he has some wild ideas, but I've checked a few of them and they stood up. For 6 weeks I decided they were plausible and reasonable, and I abandoned the design of electric machinery and began studying the insulation of high voltages in vacuum and the acceleration of heavy particles to high energies.
My uncle explained that to me many, many years ago, the power, and that was 35 years ago. He would explain the power of what's going to happen, and he was right.
We now know that Tesla was interested and experimented in wild ideas such as wireless electricity, Wi-Fi, free energy, anti-gravity, invisibility, and even time travel. After Tesla's death, Jon Trump went over Tesla's notes and utilized his discoveries to develop the first million-volt X-ray generators for rotational radiation therapy. Although Jon Trump thought Tesla's time machine was possible, it could not be created using the technology from that era. Jon Trump later died in 1985, but not before leaving Tesla's notes to his beloved nephew, Donald Trump. Around the same time, Trump was using pseudonyms such as John Miller and John Barron in partial homage to his uncle.
Old spokesman, as the Washington Post headline writes, maybe that it's been such an open secret for so long it's hard to believe that anyone is still questioning it.
What's your name again? John Miller. And you work with Donald? Yes, that's correct.
It was back in the 1980s, and when the flashy New York real estate mogul needed to get a bit of news out, the newspaper reports it was common knowledge among New York reporters that Trump just assumed a different name and handled the media calls himself.
I can conclude with a fair degree of scientific certainty that it is Donald Trump's voice.
This afternoon, Owens compared the John Miller on that phone call with People magazine to the real Donald Trump interviewed on CNN's Larry King Live in the 1990s. Due to the quality of the old recordings, he couldn't use his biometric analysis that he says would be absolutely certain, but based on pitch, tone, cadence, and his expertise, John Miller and Donald Trump are one and the same.
Yes, it's my opinion that it is Donald Trump's voice.
Now it's suggesting that you misled us.
Yeah, that I'm lying. I'm not lying.
His denial was, that doesn't sound like me. It's interesting, because if somebody called me up and said, did you call and pretend to be your own PR person, I would say, no, I never did. I have never done something like that, ever. I wouldn't say that doesn't sound like me.
Right.
So you don't believe him. Were you surprised to see him misleading?
No, I'm not surprised to see him misleading. Of course not. I mean, I would probably be a little shocked that this came into my life. But Megan, the main thing here is that I didn't leak the tape. And there were two people on the conversation.
Wait, you taped it because you're a reporter doing your job?
Yeah, and I lost the tape.
Were you the only one with a copy of the tape?
Yes.
When did you lose it?
Back 25 years ago.
Could somebody have stolen it?
No. It was in my house, and then I moved apartments.
So who else would have had a copy of the tape?
Donald Trump.
Wait a minute. So you're suggesting Trump leaked this to the Washington Post?
Yes.
Why?
You got me. He's done stranger things.
Because he loves publicity?
Yeah.
So you're suggesting that he may want us talking about this right now because it generates a news cycle, perhaps?
Hello, Donald.
These names would be exposed during his 2016 presidential campaign run. However, there was another pseudonym Trump used that isn't well known. John Titor. Tiller in particular is of special interest to this conspiracy.
Oliver, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Oliver, just give us an overview of who John Tiller was.
Sure. John Tiller, actually, I just took a look at the calendar, and it's going to be exactly 10 years ago, November 2nd, that somebody claiming to be a time traveler from the year 2036 went on a series of internet forums claiming to be a time traveler. And they offered to answer questions. They talked about the future, about technology, how time travel worked. And for a period of 3 months, this person answered questions, and then they announced that they were going to leave. And this is March of 2001. This person announced that they were leaving, and they were never heard from again. And I think the reason why we're here talking about it 10 years later is because a lot of what this person said, people feel has come to pass. Talking about the physics and the technology and the politics, we're here and I'm here because some of the things that this person said sure made it sound like they really were who they said they were, a time traveler.
Making claims as early as November of 2000 to be a time traveler from the year 2036. Tiller spoke of events that happened in his native timeline onto an obscure internet discussion board, posting several warnings for personal reasons. Answering questions directed toward him, he even posted several pictures showing the instruction manual and the time device, manufactured by General Electric, in the back of his 1967 Chevrolet. There are rumors he even faxed messages to various radio hosts like Art Bell of Coast to Coast AM, warning of the impending future. He spoke of terrible events that would occur from early 2000 through 2012, leading to war. He did not name Islamic terrorism, but mentioned that a skyscraper would vanish in New York. Not speaking specifically because the timeline was often in flux.
But one of the predictions that this person made in the fax, he said that in New York, there's a skyscraper missing. He says, where I'm from, in my time, there's a skyscraper that's missing. This is 1998, so 9/11 had not happened here. So a lot of people point to that as John trying to signal that, hey, I am who I say I am, and you're not going to realize it until the year 2001.
BuzzFeed dug up an old quote from Donald Trump talking about a large-scale terror attack 19 months before 9/11. In his 2000 book, The America We Deserve, Trump wrote, "I really am convinced we're in danger of the sort of terrorist attacks that will make the bombing of the 1993 Trade Center look like little kids playing with firecrackers." Trump also mentioned the mastermind of the attack, writing, quote, "One day, we're told that a shadowy figure with no fixed address named Osama bin Laden is public enemy number one, and U.S. jet fighters lay waste to his camp in Afghanistan. He escapes back under some rock, and a few news cycles later, it's on to a new enemy and a new crisis." Trump.
Wait.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on a second.
Mm-hmm.
Is this really Trump before 9/11? Have you read this?
It's 2000 in his book.
Are we making this? Did you make this up, Mika?
Nick.
I don't know if that guy was a time traveler or not, but everything he said about that machine is true. And maybe only 20 people knew about it because it was a marketing issue at the time, that they didn't want people to know that the machine was that versatile, because then it would have diminished their business. So they kept that under wraps. So at the time, there was only about 20 people that knew that this machine could do it. And, apparently John Tiller was one of them, or he really was a time traveler.
Just wait, though. There's more.
Oh,
so there's more. So Tesla had a love for pigeons and doves, right? He had them, they come to his tower. He had this one pigeon that was his favorite. It was a white dove. And on this white dove came to him when he died, Tesla said. And the dove's eyes shone brighter than any lamp that he had created, he said, when it died, and it passed when it died. And that was reminiscent to me of Donald the Dove, which was a nickname that John Trump had given Donald. But there's also a magazine where you can see Donald Trump holding this white dove. And at that time, he was talking about how if he was president, he could negotiate peace with Israel and, or not Pakistan, but
Iran,
all of the Middle East. So he talks about that, and that was his kind of thing. And so he's always kind of, there's predicting program of him coming to negotiate this peace deal. And of course, you remember the coin in Israel and kind of the battle cry of Donald Trump. So it's all really kind of mind blowing. Does anything come to your mind, David?
Well, there's a big one here, and of course, we know the biblical symbolism of the dove representing the Holy Spirit. We see in this picture Donald Trump holding the dove, and absolutely the Luciferians believed that this real force was the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
The universal magnetism of the snake swallowing its tail.
Yeah, the dove is always like classified as a spirit throughout all mythologies.
Yeah.
I mean,
and Hitler believed if he could control the Vril, he could control the world.
So that concludes that part of that video right there. So there's so much more, and there's more in that video for those of you that want to go back and watch that. It is still on YouTube. I think we did it in 2022. But man, I'll tell you, there's more we're going to cover here. So just hold on to your horses. It's going to be a little bit longer. I promise I won't let you go on too long tonight, but I think it's worth your time, hopefully. So, but David, going back to that, what do you have to say to that stuff?
I was here the first time when we did it, and it's still just stunning, isn't it? I mean, just to begin to think about these things and all of these connections that just can't be coincident. It is truly stunning to me.
It is truly stunning. So we're going to go on to this next clip. This covers more of the subject we're going to be talking about, and I think it's definitely a must to be able to fully kind of cover who is Trump here. So here we go, guys. We're going to go ahead and start this video. And David, if there's any point you want me to pause this video and say, hey, pause, I want to say something, please do.
Yes,
because
sir.
Robert Sapar is not a believer. He is a anthropologist, a human anthropologist. And he has a lot of stuff that really lines up with the stuff that we've been studying. It really makes sense from a broad range perspective of the world. So here we go.
I'd like to point out some interesting facts about President Trump, whose paternal ancestry is traceable to Bohemian Amberg, a village in southwestern Germany in the 18th century. Its residents are known as Palatines. Their historic coat of arms is the Palatine lion, with its tongue extended, a red crown, symbols of their ruling families as seals, and also on the Bavarian coat of arms. Bavaria's origins date back to Celts and Suebian groups. The Celts identify as one of the lost tribes that entered Europe, and the Suebians should sound familiar to my readers as in Swabia or Neuschwabenland, the area of Antarctica annexed by the nationalist Germans and central to Operation High Jump, the classified post-World War II military invasion of Antarctica by Allied forces.
And David, I know that we've done a show on this and we've talked about this quite a bit. What is your idea on why did the Germans go and start a place in Antarctica and call it New Schwabenland?
Well, they began going there. There were German expeditions to Antarctica even in the 1800s, and they started doing serious trips to Antarctica in the 30s. And I think as far as the Nazis were, it was almost a backup plan. You know, it was like plan B. If we get destroyed, we'll go here to survive. And a lot of it was just a lot of basic military tactical advantage of having something there at Antarctica. And we've got it all here. We've got Bavaria. We have the Bavarian Illuminati. And the reason why the Illuminati was birthed in this area of Bavaria because it was a Jesuit stronghold. Adam Weishaupt was a professor at Ingolstadt University. He was a Jesuit professor before he was a Luminist and before he was a Freemason. So we have all we have in the bloodline and the geography and the whole thing. We have every ingredient we need for a massive conspiratorial plot here.
And I believe the story goes, too, that the Germans also believed there was a race of blonde-haired, blue-eyed giants that actually lived in these areas, and they wanted to intermingle with their blood, and so that they could go back to their Aryan heritage.
Yeah, that there in Antarctica, he was in search of this inner Earth race that he could inbreed the German people with.
Johann Trump, born in Bobenheim in 1789, moved to the nearby village of Karlstadt, where his grandson, Frederick Trump, the grandfather of Donald Trump, was born in 1869. This German heritage was long concealed by Donald Trump's father, Fred Trump, after World War II, and until the 1980s, he told people he was of Swedish ancestry. Donald Trump repeated this version in The Art of the Deal, published in 1987, but later said he was proud of his German heritage.
You know, I'm proud to have that German blood. There's no question about it. Great stuff.
Of course, Sweden was founded by the same group of people that we call Swabians, and very few people understand what that means. That said, one needs only look at the occult, meaning hidden, symbology of the Trump Tower to gain a deeper insight into his true ancestry. Completed in 1983, it has an official height of 664 feet, but if you count its spire, however, it raises its height to 666 feet. While 666 is called the number of the beast in most manuscripts of Revelation, a fragment of the earliest papyrus gives the number of 616 as the original number of the beast. In a Kabbalistic context, 666 is a positive holy number associated with light, or the sun, and the heart chakra. 666 is also the number of the goddess, such as Ishtar, Isis, Aphrodite, and is sacred in Egyptian mythology. It's related to sex, fertility, and motherhood. That said, Trump Tower also features an inverted triangle made up of trees or bushes. An upside-down triangle is also a symbol of the goddess. In alchemy, it means water, or the divine feminine energy. And if you look closely, you'll see that the trees are arranged in 3 rows of 6, making up the 3 sides of the triangle. I'd like to also point out that the tree itself is a sacred sex symbol, from the tree in the Garden of Eden to the fig or Bodhi tree associated with Buddha and enlightenment, which is really a reference to Tantra. Above this inverted triangle of trees, we see 7 pillars rising. If you count the points at the top of the building, you'll notice there's 7, which in Tantra are the number of chakras in the human body. In astrotheology, there are 7 gods, meaning the 5 visible planets with the naked eye, plus the sun and the moon. In Islam, or Sufi cosmology, there are 7 heavens and hells. And of course, in the biblical context, it's the 7 days of creation. In a more esoteric perspective, 7 has to do with sacred geometry. As Pythagoras tells us, the number 7 is, quote, the essence or first principle of things. The famous G in the square and compass symbol is publicly regarded as standing for God or the generative principle, but in esoteric context, it stands for the 7th letter of the alphabet, which alludes to the ancient esoteric tantric practices. A self-proclaimed Christian, he's also an initiate that, like the Freemasons and Rosicrucians, subscribe to a lineage based on the heritage of the Knights Templar, who claim descent from High Temple priests of Jerusalem, whose ancestors fled into Europe after the destruction of the temple and introduced Kabbalah into European secret societies, which for a time was regarded as alchemy. This ancient Aryan bloodline goes back to the Magi of Mesopotamia and priests of ancient Egypt, who according to German textbooks up until 1945 were regarded as the true origins of the Nordic people. During the Holocene, as indicated by the yellow circles on this map, who eventually migrated north into Europe and Scandinavia. This should also help to explain why Trump uses the lion symbol, as I've already explained about his ancestry, Germanic bloodline, and occult significance he incorporates into his architecture, as well as his personal allegiance to an ancient Kabbalistic network that is misunderstood by many and completely unknown to most.
Whenever you look and you begin to consider a conspiratorial scenario or to probe the possible eventual truth of a situation, you have to ask yourself, is it possible? And it's striking to me, I think it was maybe Mr. Trump's great-great-grandfather was born in 1789 in this area of Germany. This was 13 years after the Illuminati was formed in this very area. And we had there the Rothschilds, and we see deep, you've already shown here the deep ties we have with the Trump family and the Jewish people. We had Jacob Frank there. We had Adam Weishaupt there. And this was all there in this Jesuit area, and there's tremendous ties with the Trump family and Catholicism. And was it his great-grandfather? He grew up. He was 13 years after these people came together in this area to form that. This is the atmosphere and the area that the Trump family grew up in, so it's very likely. And as you look at Mr. Trump, all of these original elements of the Illuminati, his family has ties to them. And it could be because they were established in this bloodline long ago in Germany, way back in the 18th century.
There's things about Trump that really do make me wish that sometimes he was sincere with some of the stuff he said, and maybe he is. I don't know. I think he's super smart. I think that he has the ability to move people in a way that we haven't seen in a very, very long time. So that's that video. Interesting stuff, to say the least. I mean, when you really just consider this bloodline, everything, there's also a video I saw and a book that these people were showing out of his genealogy, and he also goes back to a king of Jerusalem. And what I find interesting about all of this, if you really think about it, even if his bloodline is impeccable towards that lineage, if you look at like the kings of Babylon, nobody would have had a better lineage than Nebuchadnezzar to an elite lineage, and yet God called him his servant and used him in these situations. So just having that bloodline doesn't necessarily mean that God can't use that person or doesn't use those people in that bloodline, because as much as they may think that they have a bloodline going to the Nephilim or whatever, we don't know what their future or their past really looks like. It's interesting, though, to say the least. What do you think about that, David? I mean, this is years later we're looking at this. But.
Yeah, and just quite honestly, when you look at all these intricate symbolisms that is so blatant of the 666 and the goddess, and we're not even, I know a lot of you, most of you have seen all the things in Donald Trump's apartment. It just doesn't pass the smell test with me to think that he's just naive to all of that. You know, he's too smart a guy. And having said that, too, you know, I think of the Stuart dynasty that was there in England. The Stuarts were just about as nasty you can be. They were hardcore Roman Catholics in allegiance to the Pope, and God reached down and he plucked out James the First and turned him to the Protestant faith and not the Catholic, and why we have our King James Bible. Now, you know, and also there's the layers around Mr. Trump, the heavy Kabbalistic and Zionist connection, and also the Jesuit connection. As I mentioned in that video, Adam Weishaupt was a Jesuit before he was a Luminist and a Freemason. And we just saw Mr. Trump recently there at the Al Smith dinner, you know, and that is a Catholic function. And it was just really surprising to me that how many Jewish billionaires show up at this Catholic function. We have Michael Bloomberg and a lot of other very rich elite New York Jews. So it's quite the mix. So, but still, you know, I just get that whiff in my nose that, you know, this just ain't right here.
Well, if it wasn't right before, maybe this will help it a little bit, or maybe make it worse. I don't know. We're going to watch this video. This is from the same video, but it talks about his ties to Israel and how profound they are. So we're going to watch this. We have the Trump coin, the temple coin that they use for the 70 years to fulfill 70 years that they have been a nation once again. 70-year anniversary. They chose Trump, and they showed a picture of him by King Cyrus. What can we say about King Cyrus, David?
Well, Cyrus was a Persian king that gave the decree that enabled Nehemiah and Ezra to restore the temple worship there in the Second Temple. And many people look to Mr. Trump as this type of really larger-than-life figure. And certainly in Israel, he is more popular in Israel than he is in America.
Is Trump height that they've allowed him to build on and kind of created a city, blocks, and everything else surrounding the man. Also, he moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, declaring Israel the true state, declaring Jerusalem the capital of Israel. And he was awarded the Keter Yerushalayim Crown of Jerusalem Award on July 10th, 2023 by the Israel Heritage Foundation. They crowned Trump. They crowned Trump as the king of Israel. That's what they were saying. Yeah, interesting stuff, man. To say the least. This just keeps getting thicker and thicker. And you're right, David. He has to know who he is. But like we said before, that doesn't mean God can't use him, but he does have to know who he is. I mean, you see it in his apartment complex. For those of you that haven't seen the full show we did on Trump not too long ago, we showed inside of his apartment how he had the pictures of Apollo and how he had all of these different statues and everything kind of pointing to that. So I'm praying that this assassination attempt caused him to have a change in faith, because all of this stuff points to him knowing exactly what he is. Yeah. Even if we don't know, he knows.
The Bible tells us to pray for our leaders, and I have been praying for Mr. Trump, and I will continue to do so. I certainly will. I would love for Mr. Trump to do well, and I would love for our nation to have a real, genuine turn back to God. Of course we would, but in all honesty, I have to say I'm still at the what's that smell stage. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, we'll see the smell very soon. Well,
maybe.
We'll see the smell very soon. We'll see here.
We'll see.
So you talked a little bit about this earlier, but part of this collection is the book 1900 or the Last President.
Yeah.
And it talks about, as you were telling us before, David, it talks about how this outsider gets elected, and in Fifth Avenue, where this Trump Tower stands, there's this big riot that takes place in that area, and just unrest starts happening and all of this stuff. So
yeah, and I might mention in the Ingersoll Lockwood books, the riots start at Madison Square, where Mr. Trump just recently did the quite historic rally at Madison Square Garden. I mean, how does that happen?
I don't know. This is going on right now.
This is right now.
This is going on as we speak right now in New York. We see stuff going on in Chicago right now as well. So yeah, it's.
Racist, sexist, anti-gay.
But this is the kind of stuff that I think we're going to expect to see in the future. That's why this book is such a fun, I think. It's just there's so many things in it that just seem to play right in to what's getting ready to happen, and what has happened. And that's not to mention Barron Trump himself. I mean, Barron Trump is he's a tall, smart young man that seems to have his head on straight. So we could be seeing something from him in the future as well. Who knows exactly what all this means? But that's the kind of stuff that you're seeing going on in New York right now. So my question, even if you believe Trump is going to help America, if you believe that, some of you don't believe that, some of you do believe that, I am like David, wait and see. We'll see what happens here in the near future. But my point is, he's still not president right now. He will, it'll be in January by the time he is inaugurated. Do you really think that the dark side will lay down and give up all of their control that they've had over the entire world for such a long time? I don't think they'll do it. I think that they're going to do everything in their power to make sure this doesn't happen. It doesn't mean that they're going to succeed, but I think they're going to do everything in their power. We have millions of enemies within. The records show that millions of immigrants have come across our border. A lot of people that are in our border right now that hate America, including people in our government that hate America. Our government itself is devaluing our own dollar. There's so many things going on that it would be hard-pressed to see that we don't have major enemies within. And we're at the weakest time that I've ever seen in our country. And, of course, I'm only 42 years old, but I've never seen people so weak, minds so weak. At universities such as Harvard, they had cry rooms or rooms where people could go if they feel distressed about the election. This is how weak our people have gotten. And look, we're talking about some major things going on, and I haven't even mentioned a lot of the stuff that's going on, but there are people out there that are blowing the whistle on all of these people that are literally within our borders. David, you have anything to ask before I play this video of Putin here?
Well, I just want to say that the left isn't going to lay down, and these people, and I'll say in all honesty, I couldn't vote for Mr. Trump, but I'm really glad he's in instead of them. I can honestly say that. Maybe that's convoluted, I don't know. But I really am glad, because obviously many of the things Mr. Trump is for are so much better than those loons. But I really do pray that he lives to take office. And I would be really surprised if there isn't another very serious attempt to kill Mr. Trump before he takes office. I think that's just a no-brainer. Yeah. So I really hope he is taking measures to protect himself.
And I would say the same for you guys too, because they are infiltrated within every line of government work and everything else along those lines. And right now, there's nothing holding them back. And so every bit of power that they can take right now, they're going to take it. So also Trump needs protection, but you guys, we need protection as well. We need to be thinking about this. Yeah. This is a video from Now I don't have the whole video on here. I'm not going to play the whole video for you because it's a long video, but I do recommend going and checking out this video in its entirety, because the stuff that Putin says will get the hairs on the back of your neck standing up. I promise you that. But this is what he said here just recently.
To a certain extent, the moment of truth is coming. The previous world order is irreversibly becoming a thing of the past. One could say has become a thing of the past. And the shaping of the new world order is become the scene of uncompromising fight. Uncompromising, first and foremost, for the reason that it's not even the battle for power or geopolitical influence. It's a clash of the very principles that would be the foundation between the relation, for the relation of the countries at the next historical stage. And its outcome will define whether all of us jointly can build a world that would allow everyone to develop and to solve the outstanding contradictions based on mutual respect of cultures and civilization without coercion and use of force.
So he goes on to talk about more stuff, but he talks about how the left in the West are destroying the dollar on purpose. And so here's the way I look at it, that you see that they've formed a union there. There's like 11 countries, major countries in the world that have formed this union together. I believe they call it BRICS 2024. And Russia's no longer acting on the American dollar. All of these countries are banding together. Now, there's a calm before the storm right now, and realize this, that people like these people, like our enemies, like some of the people that are in power right now in our own country, they've been great at gaslighting. They've been great at telling you and accusing you of the things that they themselves are doing.
Oh, yeah.
Interestingly, what we see from them is a peaceful transition, I wouldn't believe that for one hot minute. I also wouldn't believe that Russia and China don't want a piece of the United States. Just because he said that this, and if you go on to watch the rest of it, I wouldn't be surprised if sometime between now and the inauguration, maybe on the day of or even close to it, somewhere around there, you may see us being attacked by these people. They already have people within. They have a bigger fleet than we do as far as naval fleet. Through all war games, according to war people within the Pentagon, war games have showed us losing to China every single time. So when it comes to war and when it comes to this stuff, people are right now rejoicing, thinking, oh, this is great. But this is what they want. They want us to be relaxed and not caring about what's going to happen, because that's when things can happen. That's when things can strike.
Yeah. And I've done some reading into that too, those war games. And every way you slice it, short of without using nuclear weapons, China kicks our tail in the Pacific in a naval conflict. You know, all this, we're the biggest military. And, you know, it's like now people don't believe Russia has nuclear weapons anymore. It's like we don't even believe that. But, you know, is it door number one where Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin and Elon really oppose the New World Order? Or are they the right head of the beast that's just fighting to be able to control it? There's never a time when the Israel of God should be more in prayer and watching and praying and being ready, because what the Bible says is going to happen is going to happen. And we'll just have to see where everyone lines up here.
My question is, why is, and I like the things Trump's saying recently. He's talked about, you know, all of the things he's going to do when he gets in, but he's no longer running for office. And what I find odd is that he would announce these things this early, knowing that it's going to provoke the enemy to strike hard against what he's doing, because they're not going to, you know, the things he's saying they're going to do are really threatening some very powerful and elite people. And then you have this post from Elon Musk over on X, Novus Ordo Seclorum. And that doesn't make me feel easy. You know, I do believe that they are, I mean, Putin just said it, they're trying to form a new world order where everybody can work together. So this is more confirmation that this is what is trying to be done. Now, like I said, it's going to take some time to see exactly what kind of new world order we're talking about. But if it's the new world order that we've heard about in the Bible, if it's that new world order, then what does that even mean? What does that mean to us today? David, if it's the new world order that we find in the Bible, what does that mean for Christians?
That is the reign of the beast. That's nothing less than that. It's the reign of the beast. That's exactly what that is.
And I mean, it's hard to say anything else. So here is what I would say to you guys that I think is really going to be important. You're going to need to pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention to your surroundings. Pay attention to the places that you go. Pay attention to the people that you see, and don't be quick to act on emotion, because a lot of people act on emotion. They get emotional about a subject, and boom, they're at it. Like you saw in the January 6th thing, where I think it was January 6th, where people went inside the White House and they left the doors open on purpose. They did that so that people would get in trouble. They did this to kind of, and it was even organized by people that were not on the side that they thought they were on, right? So people are getting emotional and jumping into things. There might be things that pop off that where you feel like, man, this is it. This is when we have to go and we have to do this. But I would say pray, humble yourself, gather information before you act on anything. You know, you don't know exactly what's being set up. These people are cunning. These people are evil, and they'll do anything to keep themselves from being judged and thrown into prison and for losing their money flow, whatever the case may be. And so there's a big play for power happening, no doubt about it. Whether Trump is good or evil or somewhere in between, that will be something that we'll have to see. But what I say is there's definitely a power struggle happening. A lot of these release things that are being going to be released, I believe, are the hand of Trump. I believe that he has been at the heart of a lot of this stuff so that he can get himself into office. I mean, he even had several judges that were willing this time to prosecute people for voter registration. They may have been some of the judges that were in some of these Diddy and Epstein tapes. I don't know, but there's a big play happening nonetheless. We don't want to get caught in the middle of it being, useful idiots and being stuck in the middle somewhere and, risking our own lives for nothing. So I would say pray and be humble, because no matter who is in power, no matter what person that God puts behind the wheel, if his people humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, he will come and be there for us. So we need to pray and turn. Don't be prideful because your candidate won and think that, oh man, now we're saved. That's not how it works. It never works that way. It doesn't matter what leaders in power. God bends their heart the way that he wants it to be bent. He bends and turns the ways. And so we need to pray, and we need to offer prayer up for our leaders, but we also need to pray for our families and pray for all of those around us, because spiritual warfare is high right now. People's emotions are high, and I believe, and I'm not prophesying anything, but I believe crazy things are about to happen. I've seen these things, and I just see it happening again.
Yeah, the tensions are going to begin to boil, and there's going to be plenty of people that are going to fuel the fire of those tensions. And I believe, and I've said for a long time, I don't believe there is a political solution for the problems of our nation. I believe there's a spiritual one. And one thing we don't want to overlook is that the Lord omnipotent reigneth, and he is going to use the Israel of God in this time to get the truth of the gospel and the truth of Jesus Christ out to people. The crazier things get, the more people are going to be open to hearing the message of Jesus. That's where we come in. Yeah. That's where the Israel of God, we need to be on our knees like never before, watching and praying. Be those watchmen on the wall, that we can bring people to Jesus in this time. That's the real important thing for us to keep our eyes on.
So true. You couldn't have said it better. Guys, it's time to pound the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribe before you hit the like button. But we're going to pound the like button together on the count of 3. You guys ready? 1, 2, 3. Boom! Boom, shakalaka. Thank you guys so much for liking this. Subscribe if you liked the content. Subscribe and check it out. Make sure to comment on the video after it's over. Let us know what you think. Listen, we need to be together and not divided. Whether you voted, whether you didn't vote, I don't care about that at all. What I care about is that we as believers come together, love each other, and do the best that we can to save a dying world. Do the best that we can to be the hands and the feet of our Messiah, Jesus. So thank you guys so much. David, if you'd like to end us out, let's do it.
And do, by all means, obey the scriptures and pray for President Trump. And with that, until next Saturday night, 10 p.m. Central, a big high five and good night, everybody, from the Midnight Ride.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up, rise up, rise up.